Okay, yeah, I guess we don't get the little live notice anymore, do we?
It's showing up for me, but
Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the monthly meeting of the Athens in Motion Commission. This is also serving as our annual meeting where we present our annual report from the previous year. Here's our agenda for tonight. After the minutes, as I said, we'll go through the annual report. And then we have some regular updates and then committees and commissions. Very exciting, our first meeting of the year. And are there any additions or modifications to our agenda? Right. If there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Okay, first from Randy.
Seconded.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Seconding. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right, Daniel, do we have any public comments?
we do not.
All right, moving on to the minutes. Thank you, Blaine, for getting those together for us. This was from our meeting back in late November. We did not meet in December. It was a while ago, previous year. Nice summary here. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? All right. If there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
And I'll second it.
All right, first from Aaron, second from Mark. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right. Next, our major agenda items, the annual report, which we have been waiting for. And it says draft for now, but I would like to take a vote tonight unless there's anything egregious that needs to be remedied. So before we vote, I will take out the words draft here. So this summarizes our activities from last year, 2021. And we will all vote on it. Daniel, thank you for correcting your title because it seems like I can't get it right. I'm like, are you the bike and pedestrian safety coordinator? Are you the bike ped coordinator? So thank you for getting that on there. So there's a table of contents and y'all can click to read that. The beginning just includes our major duties and responsibilities. I got this directly from our website, made notice of our arrivals and departures. Of course, we had Randy, Blaine, and Carly all join us in 2021 and still with us. Thank y'all for your service. And of course, thank you, Teresa, Aaron, Mark, James, and Craig for sticking around. And we said goodbye to Roswell Lawrence Jr., who was the UGA appointee before Blaine Van Note joined us. And then Jake Maas stepped off as a commissioner, but he has still been active in grants and data. He's still part of that committee, and he has helped us with our Lexington Road T-Splosh 2023 submission. More on that in a moment. And then Daniel, I feel like you've been with us forever, but did you come last year? This past year?
This is yep. I'm coming up on my 1 year.
I really feel like you've been here 2 years at this point, all the work that you've done and the good relationship that we've formed with you. So thanks for being our bike, pedestrian, and safety coordinator. Don't leave, or at least give me a heads up. Yeah, so some change up this past year. And also as part of the sort of general about section here, I established our permanent committees, which I feel really good. I know that initially when we were first established, we had a whole bunch of committees and we kind of consolidated them. And I think that this is a nice grouping. Grants and data, education and outreach, policy and projects. And then we have the corridor committees, which I elaborate on a little bit later. And then any ad hoc committees. So this section here is just 2021 at a glance. So this kind of summarizes our major activities. We were supposed to have a minimum number of meetings, which we more than met that. We had 11 regular meetings and 5 special called meetings, not including all the regular committee meetings and the ad hoc meetings and all the time you all spent getting your T-SPLOST 2023 submissions, presentations, and project alternative versions together. Of course, a lot of those special called meetings were regarding Barber Street. And then we also wrote 2 official letters of recommendation, and we are continuing to try and plan an open streets event. This is kind of a summary. Of course, we did much more than that. So breaking it down into our major activities, the T-SPLOST 2023 accelerated timeline really took up a huge amount of time, and that was an Athens Motion Commission-wide effort, so that wasn't relegated to any one particular committee, and I think that it ended up being even more work than what we anticipated. So I thank you all for your dedication to that. And it was during the summer, and some of us were trying to take vacation and trips, and thank you for making that a priority. Of course, we knew that T-SPLOST was coming up, but we didn't think that we would start preparing for it until late 2021. But due to the fact that the program T-SPLOST 2018 was making too much money, was going to have to be ended sooner. So SPLOST office and our elected officials and staff had to get it together a lot faster. We submitted 5 projects, as you all know. Of course, we submitted a general bucket project for our next round of high priority bike and pedestrian facilities to be determined. Of course, we're like trying to figure out what would be best. We have 75 tier 1 projects. So we kind of left that open, also seeing, what doesn't get funded with T-SPLOST and is still a high priority. We had the Atlanta Highway West Broad bike ped facilities, Lexington Road bike ped facilities. So all that is 78, came out of the corridor studies. And then we started, pitched a neighborhood sidewalk program as a project because there is no funding in the Athens-Clarke County budget. There's no line item for building sidewalks. And then, of course, the Athens in Motion plan is strategic, and it's about building a broader network and doesn't really deal with smaller sidewalks in neighborhoods that would connect to the overall network. So we hope to fill that gap with that. But there were a lot of neighborhood sidewalk projects submitted to T-SPLOST. So our program didn't make it, but I think that the goals of it will be fulfilled by those individual submissions. And finally, pedestrian accessibility improvement. So remedying issues with existing sidewalks like telephone poles in the middle of sidewalks, and looking to create a more accessible network. So 4 out of 5 of our projects made it to the T-SPLOST 2023 Advisory Committee's final recommended list. I'll have an update, which I don't really have much of an update, but we'll come back to that in a regular meeting. We also looked at some projects that we had started. Barber Street, we held 3 special called meetings about that. We heard some presentations. Teresa spent a lot of time breaking down what the options were for us. Thank you, Teresa, for all your effort synthesizing that. Remember that? Yes, yes. And then we didn't do a whole lot on Cherokee Road. That was mostly the previous year, but we did discuss the design and some entry points on the side closest to Lexington. I think that's all we really got into this or 2021 calendar year. I think everything else, as far as our role, was previous year. Like, I don't think we did anything with Riverbend Road this year or anything. Does that sound right, y'all? I'm pretty sure that was last year. Daniel, if you don't remember talking about Riverbend Road, then we know it wasn't this year.
I've been talking about Riverbend Road a lot on the side. I'm not sure if it was with you guys though. I think you guys helped push it through the concept, and most of the conversations have been through the plans development.
Okay, that seems right. And then we had 2 official letters and recommendations. One was very early in 2021 where we recommended, when there was some discussion about the Firefly trail route potentially deviating from the original rail bed, and we had recommended that it stick with the original rail bed route that was promised to voters. And then we also sent a letter about Lexington Road and Atlanta Highway. And there might be some other letters out there, but the one that I found was we had submitted a letter of recommendation for Bike Athens for their Governor's Office of Highway Safety grant. Is there any other letters that we might have written for groups that I'm missing besides? I guess I could do the RAISE grant one.
There was so Jake had already, I think he had just stepped down from the commission, but he did help a little bit with a grant for Tallahassee Bridge.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember the source on that.
So he,
Steven, you don't happen to remember the name of it, do you?
Sorry, I had to step away. Can you ask that again?
The grant that Ronnie and his team were working on, Jake and I developed some of the narrative for it. It's like that bank grant
The
for Tallahassee Bridge.
Yeah, the Georgia Transportation Infrastructure Bank.
Okay, yeah. GTIB.
Okay, so grant GTIB.
Yes.
Tallahassee Bridge.
Yep, Tallahassee Bridge over CSX, multi-use trails.
Okay, I'm gonna put that under grants and data like I did for the review that he did for the RAISE grant.
I think y'all did give me feedback on my build for the database, for the planning database. So
Okay.
under grants and data.
Okay. Say that again.
I don't know exactly how you want to phrase it, but basically, I got feedback from the grants and data committee on the bike and pedestrian planning data set, which is one that I've been developing.
Bike and pedestrian data.
Yeah, bike and pedestrian planning data set.
Okay. Okay, let me do that. Okay. All right, we'll come back to grants and data. Yeah, I think that this, yeah, all right, so that's similar. Are there any other, before we come back to the committees, any other general things that we did that was not, confined to a committee? Okay.
Lauren, I know you mentioned it somewhere, but what about that grant for, those pedestrian crossings over near Little Oak Street?
Yes, I put
Yep.
it on here. And that was across from Bernie Street, right? That sound right?
I think so.
I'm always worried that I choose the wrong name. Yep, there it is. That is like 2 blocks down from me. Pass it every day. Okay. Okay, committees, is there anything else that you would like to include? This is really just the high level stuff. Particularly the committees that I'm not part of regularly. Okay. I'll go down to policy and projects. We submitted a complete streets policy update to the county manager. More on that later in this meeting. We determined the projects to be developed as part of the T-SPOS 2023 submissions, but then the actual development of the project was more commissioner-wide, so thank you all. Again, that was a whole group effort. And late last year, we began reviewing bike laws across the country with a presentation by Cole Scott, and we are looking at those now. And then I went and participated in a roadway safety audit for West Broad Street, the Lynn Highway. Anything else from policy and projects that I'm missing? Okay. And then, of course, the corridor committees. I know
You're
that
cool enough to have a last name with 2 capital letters.
you what?
I'm not cool enough to have a last name with 2 capital
Oh.
letters.
I'm sorry, Mark. Golly.
I know everyone thinks I am, but I'm not.
Okay. I'm sorry. I know that you have to deal with that all the time, and I apologize. I'm glad I got Randy's name right this time.
Yeah.
All right. And so I didn't, rather than include the corridor committees like summaries, I just kind of said what y'all did. And I know that you met at different times, but so I just included that sometimes y'all met as much as twice a month because I think that Prince Avenue did meet twice a month for a while. And then I just summarized some of our plans for 2022. Daniel, do you want to include anything about the data set or should we save that? Because that's mainly your thing. You got this.
Yeah, I added that in there. That's really part of, I mean, that the data set builds into that 5-year revision. So.
Okay.
Lauren, do we want to say something about promoting the T-SPOS 2023 campaign? Is that something we should put in?
Can you promote or?
Whatever it is we're supposed to do. Talk about it, you know.
Yeah, I said educate and inform. I think that's technically what we're allowed to do. We can't tell voters to vote yes or no on it because we are a government entity, but we can educate and inform. Any other additions, changes, corrections? Mark, where else did I get your name wrong?
Oh, Lauren, do you want to stick in something at the bottom there about the open streets event that we might actually get to have?
Yes, yes. And this doesn't have to be everything that we're going to do, just some higher level items. Okay. Taking out draft, and I'm going to, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. That's not what I wanted to do either. I'm going to accept. Yes. 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 All right, this is the final version of our report. And I guess with that, I will entertain a motion to accept our annual report from 2021.
I'll make a motion to accept this report.
First from
No.
Aaron, thank you.
I'll second.
And a second from, who was that?
From Randy. That was from Randy. Me.
Okay, sorry, y'all are kind of small on the screen now. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, we did it. A report.
Yeah, great job, everybody, this past year, from the T-Splosh 2023 to the Firefly reroute that I think we really had, helped save that route and keep that in the original intent of the trail. So we had a great year, just a few of those among a lot of things we worked on.
Agreed, Aaron. We stayed very productive, even though we haven't been able to meet in person at all. We're getting a lot done. I guess the upside is we get to have meetings even when we're traveling and trying to take a break.
There you go.
Yay. All right, so the next item on our agenda, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, who's going to chat with us about a communications consultant that we will expend funds on. I think it's going to be a great use of our dollars, so look forward to hearing about that from Teresa. Go right ahead.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So I don't know if you all are aware of or recall, we do have a budget of $12,000. And that is, that needs to be, if we're going to spend it, it needs to be spent before the end of the current fiscal year, which I guess is June. Is that right? Anyway, so we
June
have a
30th,
few.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that became pretty apparent as we started talking about, what to do about communications is that we needed some professional help. And Daniel was very, very good about leading us to Amy Cheek, who is like a social media specialist. I believe, is she in leisure services? Is that what
Yes,
she
she is.
is? Yeah, okay. But anyway, so she had some wonderful ideas about, how we can get the word out better, develop a following, become a little more exciting and things like that. And so that's all wonderful. We need to do that. But kind of before we get to that point, we need to have a little bit of work done on our branding and marketing. And so that brought us to a proposal from Tool Design that Daniel asked them to make, which includes 2 tasks. One would be for the branding and marketing templates. And the second task would be for the strategy for communications and outreach. And the total of the 2, and they could complete this work within the fiscal year, is $11,400. So that leaves roughly $600 in our budget, just in case we want to go buy some t-shirts or something like that. So where we are with that is that if Athens in Motion would like to pursue that, then we need to have a vote to request that contract be approved by whoever it is that has to sign off on it. And I guess Daniel knows who that person is. So that's where we're at. Does anyone have any questions about this? Because I can read you lots of details or whatever you want to hear, but it's not particularly complicated, but it needs to be done well.
And just to jump out in front of any questions, there was a detail where, this is kind of a preliminary estimate, and once we come up with an idea of like what we're looking for, we already have a lot of the marketing materials, on hand, and really we just need to package those up and provide those, and then they'll fill in the gaps. And so it could actually reduce the cost of that. That total cost that she gave is to do everything from scratch. So Lauren has done quite a good job of building some really cool graphics for the T-Splosh thing, and I think we can use a lot of those design elements
Right.
in the future.
So we have a jump on that. One of the things that we did discuss was whether or not we like the current Athens in Motion logo. My feeling about it is it's okay. I don't, have any visceral reaction to it, but could it be better? And do we want to have them look at that? So, that's something we can think about. But I mean, the question for today is do we want to request the funds to engage the tool group to help us with our communications materials and strategies?
I mean, I for one am really excited about the possibility of getting some help in this area, and some professional help is great. I think that we as a commission are doing wonderful, and we've done great in terms of like policy and projects and trying to find grants and stuff. But that outreach component, those communications, we could definitely use some support there. So Teresa, I thank you, and anyone who helped you for looking into that. And I, for one, would support this use of our funding.
Okay, so should I make a motion at this point, or should someone else make a motion?
I mean, I'll make a motion, and we can still can be room for further discussion, but I make a motion that we authorize $11,400
Correct.
for use for communications, or up to 11,400 as proposed here by Teresa.
I'll second that. I think it's important with our education component of Athens in Motion. I think this could be really good for the communication education side of Athens in Motion.
For that, I mean, I feel personally, even though I've done a lot of stuff in my life, I feel kind of out of my depth with a lot of this stuff. So it would really be wonderful to have some professionals. So I'm glad that I'm hearing support from you all. Anybody differently? Anybody want to discuss?
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
I want to clarify the budget. So we're not losing out on opportunities to use these funds for anything else by doing these are strictly communications funds, or is this the Athens in Motion budget where there's only going to be $600 left?
Well, mostly when we developed the budget that we submitted last year, it was mostly for communications related things.
Okay.
We made a laundry list of what they were, but it wasn't like, well, we have to do X number of radio spots or X number of, billboards or Y number of t-shirts or whatever, because we didn't really have a plan. So, it's mostly communications at this point. Now, if we decide at some point as we're doing our work that we need funding for additional types of things, then for our next budget, not the one that we just submitted, because we've already submitted that, but the next go round, then we can certainly ask for additional money.
Mm-hmm.
And to clarify there, that was the justification originally for why we asked for the $12,000. But the way that it's allocated, it's really that $12,000 can be used for anything as long as it's approved by finance. So it's not dedicated to only be used for that. Like, you could pay interns for that. You could buy $12,000 of t-shirts. Those funds could be used for other things. And so I think the second point in your question, where this would use up the majority of the Athens in Motion funds for fiscal year 22, which ends in June 30th.
after that, assuming that our budget request is approved, then we would have, you know, a brand new pot of money, 12,000, that's the same amount that we've asked for. So then we could use that for other things too. So,
And it doesn't carry between years.
right.
Okay.
Also,
It's
I've
literally-
gotten mixed messages about the ability to use those funds to sponsor events. I've gotten some mixed messages, so I need to get more info on that. But
Because I did want to ask about that too, like open streets, but we're not planning on probably being able to do that till after the June 30th anyway, I suppose, right? I mean, that
I
would
can't
be
remember
probably
what
something
the
more for
current
fall.
date. I think the date is in the fall. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that would be in the next fiscal year anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. I trust you guys. I know, I just don't want to be, don't want to give away all our money to one pot, in case we're missing out on other opportunities. But this does seem, really like a wise move, except that I wish it was less costly. That's the only thing that concerns me. But it makes sense. It's professional help, and yeah, I'll vote in favor.
Okay, that's great. And
Yeah,
I mean, I just want to say it's good to have, this kind of questioning because, it's we can't feel like we just have a blank check to do stuff. And Carly, you do bring a unique perspective to this whole process, and I've appreciated that working with you on everything from T-Splosh to Atlanta highway sidewalks. So, what we're doing here today.
Thanks, Teresa.
I'm not gonna stand in the way, but it is a lot of money, and I hope that, I'm assuming we looked at multiple vendors, or was it just one vendor, or how did we come to this particular vendor for this?
Yeah.
this is this is the same vendor that developed the Athens in Motion plan with us.
Tool design,
Yeah, so it's
That's
Tool
not-
Design Group, and they're our kind of go-to.
and they know the space. So, okay, great. Sounds good.
And like I said, we're going to try to save as much money as we can. I think it's helpful to be approved for the full amount that it would cost, but before I can move forward to get more precise costs, we just needed to know from the commission, have that vote. So.
And yeah, this sounds like a lot of money, and I recognize that it is. I guess in terms of infrastructure, it's really not very much money. But I think of it as like a quarter of a position, and ultimately it would be nice if we could have a full-time position dedicated to communications and outreach, but that's just not in the budget right now, and we're hoping to get a Vision Zero coordinator to help Daniel out. So this is kind of a step in that direction. So imagine like, okay, now we have a person or something working 1/4 the time, 1/4 part-time, something like that. So that's how I think of it. All right, so we have a motion and a second, and we've had some discussion. Thank you all. Any additional discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. All right. I can't wait to see what Tool comes up with. I can't wait to see our social media strategy play out.
All right. So this is our first accomplishment for 2022, Lauren. Yay. We started on the annual
Put on the
report.
annual report. Go ahead and make it draft for
Oh my God,
2023.
This is genius. I'm just going to make
Yeah.
a copy of the current document and just start typing things in.
All right. Good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Teresa. Time for staff updates. Next, it's my favorite part of our meeting when Todd Miller tells us what's up with our micromobility highways that are under construction, among other things. Todd, you ready?
I think I am. As we were talking earlier, the Cemetery Greenway, we've we're making good progress on getting the concrete down on the trails from the existing trail ends, and we're working towards the bridge, the existing cemetery bridge. In the meantime, they're also working on the underpass under the bridge as well. They're doing some rock sockets and all that other stuff where it all anchors all the walls and the bridges, the stuff that they're putting under the bridge together. So that's moving along good. And then the Firefly Trail bridge over Trail Creek, the trestle, it's moving along as anticipated. The steel arches should start soon in the next month or so. They got a little bit of delay with some things, but they should be starting. I believe they're gonna start on the park side, and then they'll start on the switchback ramp side, and then they'll build towards the middle, and then they'll start on the wooden structure in the middle because they have to tie it to the steel structure. And so but everything's progressing fairly good on both of those projects. So those are the two that are under construction right now. And then they're still working on easements for Firefly Trail Phase 3, and assuming if the T-Splosh 2023 passes, then we'll have the funding to do that entire trail segment. So, that's it.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, no
Very
problem.
exciting. All right, and now turn it over to Daniel, our bike pedestrian and safety coordinator. And Daniel, you can go in whatever order you want. You have plenty of time.
All right. Well, it's been a great year so far. I am pulling up my update list right now. There we go. So, as we mentioned earlier, we are going to be moving into the 5-year update for the Athens in Motion plan soon. I know right now we're discussing the bike ordinances and other policy development things. I'm assuming that Athens in Motion plan will probably be one of the main things covered by the projects and policy subcommittee. So those will be pretty good to jump in on. Leading up to that, though, I might focus on some of the data development with the data committee. So it might be helpful for us to get something on the calendar for data. Aside from that, yeah, so basically we are going to go through and double check data, make sure it's all accurate, make sure it has all the fields we need, run it with the analysis tool that we got from Tool Design Group, and then from there we'll be able to work on changes to the story map that explain how that tool works. All of that kind of in preparation. At the same time, we could probably be working with the projects and policy group to take like an X-Acto knife to the Athens in Motion plan. And essentially what I want to do is find the spots that we need to cut out to replace with updates, right? So like short term and long-term goals, those are things that we can, we need to be updating that every 5 years. Any references to tables, so if there's a prioritization that's mentioned, or even with some of the discussion about the Atlanta Highway Corridor and the Lexington Corridor, there's a lot of content written in that plan about what we're going to do. And so I think it's helpful to just kind of each of us probably take a red marker to the whole plan, and then similar to what we've done with the Greenway plan in the past on the written updates, we'll essentially go through and get discuss all the comments just from start to end. From there, we'll be able to figure out, which sections really need the updates, which ones are more permanent and in stone, because I don't want to necessarily go through and rewrite, the entire document every 5 years. I think it's really helpful to just see as like, these are the things that we're updating. But just some of that terminology might be important, changing, these are the things we're going to do to, these are the things we are doing, or these are guiding, principles and whatnot. So that's
And
something that would be
Daniel,
this year.
we can include like the things that we actually have gotten done, right?
Yeah, I definitely want to cover like the things that we have done in the past 5 years. This first draft would kind of be like, here's what we did, and then here's what we're going to do. And that can kind of, you can then look between the documents to see the differences. I'd rather not have to do that though. It'd be a lot nicer to just have kind of easy to read, here's what we did. And
Yeah.
something that I think would be really helpful for the Athens Motion Plan is if we develop sort of an interactive plan for it as well. So if you think of it as the plan itself being a website, and then you can have links to all of the important information. And so rather than just having, walls of text or a 70-page document that not everyone's going to read, you can, go to the site that has it kind of split into the different areas of focus. So I'm really interested to get some feedback on from people who, are really interested in how can we make things more accessible to the public and easy to understand, because I think we could get some really we part of as we move into as we move into the digital age, even though we've been in it for a while, I think the written document is always really important to have, as that is the object that gets approved by mayor and commission, and it goes into the records in the city hall. But having that interactive document is very important to really make it accessible and understandable.
Yeah. The medical journal that I edit, we now consider the online version the version of record, and I think that's increasingly the case.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, that's exactly what I think we need to move towards.
And if we get with the education and communication going and have more people, the public wanting to be involved, it would be best to make that document a little more easy to find information, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm real excited about that, Daniel. I think the interactive component is going to make a big difference and help people understand where projects are versus even for us as commissioners, instead of being like, what page is Magnolia Street on? Or what is West
Yeah.
Broad Street and Atlanta Highway? Or maybe I could just click to it and be like, oh, okay, this is where it stands in the plan.
Well, and that's something I've noticed over the last year as I'm working on these things, well, a street will come up, and so I go into the plan, I look on the map, that gives me an approximation of the data, but really I have to go looking through the table to get the real picture of what we're looking at, and I have to make sure there's not like multiple, specific like call outs for a road segment if it's split into two separate projects. And so I'm definitely more of a, here's an interactive map. You click on it, here's all the information you need. You can link to other things. But even apart from just like, you know, in like encouraging that kind of like, one of the things we want to do is, education. Here are some, really helpful YouTube channels, or, some training videos. Our partners at Bike Athens have put these videos together, and so you can really get into, you can let people go down the rabbit holes that they want to go down and not force them to read 300 pages to get the full picture.
Yes, I didn't think about it that way, but that's a great point, Daniel. People choosing their own paths, curating their own experience with the plan.
Yeah, it's a choose your own adventure. So if anybody knows the person who wrote Goosebumps, just we can.
Yeah, I
Did
had a
they?
couple of those. I had two of
Yeah.
those.
I feel like they did the choose your own adventure, right? Like you go to this
Yeah.
page. And, yeah, that's what we need to do.
Now I have this vision of skeletons riding on bikes down Millage Avenue.
Yes. Next Halloween.
That's kind of morbid. Okay, maybe.
And
Going
we did do kind of a holiday bike ride. It was a few people. It wasn't like an open one, but it was like a few friends, and we thought it would be really cool to start doing some holiday bike rides with the commission as a whole and make it more of a um, organized thing. So maybe as we come up on some of the holidays, I don't know if a Valentine's Day bike ride works, but you know, it's coming up. Um,
Yeah,
all
and
right.
not to put too much on, outreach communications, but yeah, I'd love to do things like that. Have a group together, or even some of these events that are kind of like open streets events, but are not open streets events, like Porch Fest, where there's a bunch of people kind of standing around. If we can be somewhere, that would be useful. Because people suddenly brought out all their bikes and they're like, wait, I'm trying to bike from show to show. Be a good time.
Get our reflective vests out there and
Yes.
take over the road. Um, just a few other updates before I jump into the repaving thing. Um, the multi-use path along Mitchell Bridge Road and Timothy Road, those are moving forward with concept development. So as y'all remember, Mayor and Commission approved that for concept development. So we have started that process. Once there is a concept, that will be brought, I believe, to the Athens in Motion Commission, since it is a project relating to that, to y'all's mission, and then that would move through Mayor and Commission. From there, I think that's where the funding stops, but I could be wrong. Stephen, is that pretty accurate?
Yep.
All right. I am getting started with a new road safety audit planning for, this one is going to be for First and Third Street intersection, Vine Street and Mulberry Street. So we're trying to kind of hit a few at once. I've been getting a lot of requests over the past year, and Tallahassee was such a big one that it just, the amount of time and planning, and we obviously got way behind schedule on it, but as we work through those projects and get the things implemented and checked off the list, I want to go ahead and get this next one going. It's a little smaller, but it is covering 3 different areas. So those I'll have more information as those get planned. But since some of those will have bike and pedestrian and it's along the network, I'd like to get at least 2 guys from the commission, um, two humans, not guys, but yeah, 2 people from the commission to represent Athens in Motion on that. So we can talk about that more as it comes up.
So you said First and Third Street and Mulberry and Vine Street?
Yes.
Yeah, I would definitely like to be part of that. That's my neighborhood.
Awesome. Anyone else?
I'm open to it. I also live over here.
All right.
I would like
Sure.
to see East Broad too. I know that it's a whole new request, but
Yeah, we'll add it to the line.
Share the
If
date and
you do want to request a road safety audit for East Broad, you could actually send that to me as an email, and that's the best way to get it into the queue. Were you about to say something, Teresa?
oh, sorry. I said it, but I guess it didn't get heard, which is if you share the date, I might be able to go to. But just send a notice around.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
will add you. Yeah, and I'll double check with Steven. I know that especially with COVID and stuff, we may have limited space. So I just want to make sure that we have room for all of our staff too, because that's a really important part of the road safety audit. So, but I don't think there would be a problem with having 3. So, yeah, I think we've covered those things. I'm kind of reading off the same update that I gave to ORGC, so um, I'm cheating a little bit. But the Raise 2022 grant project, so I've sent in the request for talking with the Raise Grant team to find out kind of the debrief for the North Avenue project. In the meantime, we're also coming up with a few other options because we can submit up to 3 different projects and we can submit alternates for each of those. So I'm wanting to really get going on this earlier so that we have enough time to develop, because that's a lot of content to develop, and we want to make sure we have all the stats and research that's needed. So we are going to be working with consultants on that as well. So once we get the debrief, then we will move into our next phase. If anybody has ideas for Raise projects, let me know. Yeah, what you got?
Millage,
Millage.
fix millage.
All right.
I mean, it's a key corridor, it's flat, it's heavily traveled. So anyway, that would be nice.
All
How
right.
much money is the raise grant?
Up to 25 million.
Yeah, that should do it.
It'll do some of it.
Yeah.
No,
May pay
that
for
should.
the utility
You
relocation.
can create raised bike lanes over the roadway for that money.
Yeah, then we don't have to relocate utilities, right? We just do the bike lanes above the utilities in the sky.
Thanks.
And then the Vincent Drive sidewalk project, that is being managed by TPW instead of SPLOST, so that'll move it up in the queue, which is really cool. That's probably going to be another situation where it turns into a multi-use path, I'm assuming, especially since there's a lot of other projects in that area. And one of the other road safety audits that was requested was for Newton Bridge Road, basically from West Clarke, so from Chase up to up past Vincent. So I think with that road safety audit, which I'm not sure, I mean, that might, obviously it's dependent on whether we get a Vision Zero specialist or not, but that will pair nicely with informing what goes on Vincent. So that could be a good connector to, that's going to be a gap in the network at some point. We did submit the Vision Zero safety specialist staff request, so we'll keep you updated as we hear more. Stephen, what are the next steps on that? Do we just, those are mostly conversations with the manager's office?
That's right. So the manager will put together his recommended budget and submit it to Mayor Commission. Mayor Commission will do a number of meetings and retreats talking about budget, and then I believe by May we'll have a good understanding of where they're headed with some of this stuff.
Yeah. So fingers crossed for that. As I mentioned earlier, we did complete the grant for ensuring bike and pedestrian access across Tallahassee Road Bridge over the CSX line. Basic story is the costs are increasing. We were worried about being able to afford sidewalk connectivity and multi-use path connectivity. Not that we would cut that out of the width of the bridge, but that the elements would not be physically installed. So it would have room for a multi-use path, but there would be no connectivity to the surrounding area. So we want to make sure we can get that. So fingers crossed on that grant. That was through the, I guess, GTIB, like we mentioned earlier. And then Stephen and I and a few others, Tim, Mike Dunbar, our traffics team, we're working on parklet programs in coordination with Central Services. So specifically, we're exploring the interface between the bike lanes and the parklets. The most obvious example is in front of the National. There've been, there's some conflict points there. There's some issues with at one point their AstroTurf was in the bike lane and it's now been cut out, but it's like kind of cut up to the buffer line. It's still like if someone pushes their chair back into the bike lane, it's there. So this is kind of a issue. If the parklets become a permanent addition, we want to make sure that we have this considered in the ordinance, and so that's what we're working on. We're developing a few different concepts for that, and pros and cons for each one. So um, we'll get more information to you as that comes available. And let me just make a note.
Yeah, thank you for looking into that, because I did have to dodge some of those, some of that grass, that the AstroTurf in front of the National. But I mean, it's hard to be upset. Like, it's just that we're all competing for the same space that cars are taking up, right?
Yeah.
And so I hope that we can reduce conflicts there.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. That's my main concern as well.
Maybe the kind of ubiquitous green paint in that area by the National, or is that something you're considering?
We're considering protected barriers to limit crossing points, and since it would be semi-permanent, whether we do a crosswalk across the bike lane, so they have to pay for the thermo to do a crosswalk there, or if we have to shift the parklet in, we want to maintain the bike lane around there. So that is if there's an issue with ADA accessibility, because one of the things that's being written is you need to provide ADA accessibility. Well, if you put that ramp in the middle of the bike lane, that's not going to work too well. So I guess the other option would be like a raised bike lane in that area, which is what we've kind of talked about for transit bus stops. But
And I don't like slowing down, but that would also slow cyclists down and, reduce the chance of injury or accident or also crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving the parklets, and I think it's great to use space that was formerly only utilized by vehicles for, places for people to gather. And I know other places want to do this too. And I'm just, wondering too if we need to, if it's possible to maybe move the bike lanes outside of those parklets too, and consider that, just so there's less conflict points too with people, patrons crossing the bike lanes to get to the restaurant, whatnot. But I mean, I appreciate that everybody's concerned about the bike lanes too. But yeah, just wondering if there's alternatives rather than right next to the curb.
Yeah, one of the, when we were looking at that, pros and cons there, obviously the pro is that you don't have to deal with the conflict point, but it's creating more of that zigzag in and out. Whatever we do, we want to make sure that, if the lane is protected, which it is by the parked cars, then we want to maintain that buffered and protected status of the bike lane. So that's our number one priority. Um, it, it gets difficult to kind of figure out how to do it exactly, but yeah, in that particular scenario, you would then need to use the 2 parking spaces on either side to get the bike lane over, and so that increases the cost for the business. But and then it kind of raises the question of, if we have this big project where we've restriped and we've protected these bike lanes with, do we really go back and just restripe because someone wants to turn it into a dining area? So I think
Yeah.
that I'm assuming that once we get to a certain point, we'll Stephen, are we going to be able to bring those concepts to Athens in Motion, or
Sure.
okay, because yeah,
Have you heard back from San Francisco yet?
They just completely ignored my email. I will follow up with them. I sent an email to San Francisco, you guys.
Just the city itself.
Yeah, the whole city. No, they had a point of contact for their parklet program, so I was hoping I could get some information.
And just to be clear, so parking spots downtown, they are public. They're not owned by businesses. Similarly with like parking spots along Barber Street, Those are not owned by the homes next to them. They are owned by Athens-Clarke County. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. It's public right away, so yes.
Okay. Sometimes people feel differently about those parking spaces.
Yeah.
I just like to want to clear that up. And yeah, Hancock in particular was a difficult street to work with in terms of design. So looking forward to like what we could come up with, keeping the safety of the bike lane in mind.
Yeah.
And also having, but also having those public spaces or those spaces for the businesses to use. Yeah.
Yeah, so aside from that, we're also getting started on, well, we've been working in the background. Steven's been doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, but the department strategic plan. So we're moving forward with the department SWAT. Steven, do you know, are we going to be getting doing like a needs assessment from the public for the department and from other user groups?
Like for our SWOT analysis?
Not for our SWOT, but for our strategic plan.
So we're starting with the internal survey, and then we're trying to work with the GIO office to put something together similarly for external stakeholders. So eventually, yes, it will go. We'll have something that goes out. I wouldn't imagine that step will happen for at least a few months, though.
Okay. So I wanted to bring it up so that you guys would know that we'll probably be approaching you guys. I don't know exactly what the method will be, whether it's like a focus group or something, but basically to figure out our strategic plans, we want to make sure the community needs are met. And so you guys, as a user group, would be one of the points of contact there. So I'll let you know when that comes up. All right, so for the repaving projects, essentially what we've been doing, and I'm gonna try to share my screen here. I'm gonna pull up the files first though. But I can kind of walk you through the process of what we've done so far and go from there. We're still going to, so we still need to meet. I need to meet with traffic engineering, and Stephen, so the different divisions, maybe even streets too, to go over the things I found. And then once we review those, we'll have, I think, a special called session to review the specific changes with you guys. But I wanted to give you a rundown of what we are doing. So this is, once again, so each year we have a list of repaving projects. This is for a calendar year, so this is calendar year 22. Essentially, this is, we have a PCI score. It's an index of pavement condition. So pavement, I think, is that pavement condition index? Is that right, Stephen?
Correct.
Yay. So that PCI score, like 0 to 100, and we repair the lowest numbers first. And sometimes it's repaved, sometimes it's less. But if we have to cut costs, we'll do like crack fill or whatever it's called when you have tar in the street.
Crack seal.
Yes, crack steel. There we go. Not crack fill. Sorry, I had this pulled up and my computer restarted on me, so. Stephen, do you have the spreadsheet on hand?
Do you know the last time we got a copy of it?
You know what? I'm just gonna do it through Arc Pro because
Is this,
Okay.
are you talking about the schedule for this year or is something else?
Yeah, so it's the paving schedule for this year. All right, so not really proposed here. All right, gonna share my screen. And just let me know when it goes
Okay.
up.
I think I have a PDF copy of a list. I don't know if that's really what you want though.
Yeah, I think the map will be easier, probably.
Okay.
Is it displaying all right for you guys?
We can see it.
Can't read it, but we can see it.
It's a,
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna try to make it so that it's a little more visible for you on the map side of things. Unfortunately, it gets really slow when I move into GIS, so you'll just have to bear with me.
Daniel, is the link on our website up to date enough that they could also look along from their computers?
I think it says that it has a 2021 schedule up there right now. So just went there.
Okay.
So this is the county as a whole. Obviously, it's not like we'll get into more detail once it fully loads. And so all of the red lines, those are part of the 22 repaving. Some of these are carry forward from 2021. And I just had a meeting with Ronnie earlier. And so as I took a look at all of these roads, I went ahead and looked at 22 and 2023. As I was looking at them, I kind of had a few different hats on. One of them, obviously, Athens in Motion plan. Are these within our Athens in Motion plan? Is there, room to have an opportunity to pair these things up? Another hat was safety. So has this come up in a road safety audit? Have there been reports of speeding or anything, those types of things? And then some of the other things were just how does this interact with new developments coming up, in which case we talk with planning. How does this interact with with leisure services facilities? Because, I mean, most of the time, they'll be kind of the eyes on the ground. And then also just how do these work? How do these interact with our upcoming projects? So, so you can see that a lot of these are going to be local roads. So I'm going to switch it. I'm hoping I can get the text bigger here, but I'm not sure if I can.
I've
There
got
we go.
something I could share.
Yep.
I have the schedule that Ronnie presented to T-Splost, if that would be helpful.
I think that's probably more out of date. And can y'all read this now?
We just approved it last night.
Oh, really? Did he just?
Mm-hmm.
So he just okay. Yeah, if you want to share that, that's probably going to be a quicker file.
Just give me 1 second and figure out where this saved.
One of the carry forwards was a comment from you guys last year, so I made sure to continue it. It's the Barrow and Childs intersection. So that is something that y'all mentioned before. there's that requires a few different conversations, but it's one that I'm hoping we can find out. When it comes down to the paving, it's like if the condition is super, super poor, then in some cases it's best to just get the pavement back down there because it becomes a liability. But if there is room to squeeze in some other work, this particular spot has a pretty wide intersection that's a little unsafe for crossings. And so these are the types of things that I'm going to talk about with everybody, with the different division administrators as a team. All right. So Lauren just sent that in chat. So if you'd prefer to view on your own computer, that is a possibility. But meantime, let's see if I can get it to pull up. All right.
And there are some maps in there, and this is the proposed list that was included in our agenda. Last revised January 12th.
Excellent. So, can y'all see okay? A few of the ones I wanted to highlight. Can y'all read the text on this screen? Oh, geez. I'm gonna. All right. So, one of the ones I wanted to highlight, Baxter Street from South Rock Springs to Millage. This area, this is a tier 1 bike facility. It's untiered in the pedestrian because there's already sidewalk. And this would connect from some restriping that we just did on Rock Spring. So there's bike lanes there over to Millage. So this is one that we'll get into more conversations about, but we'd really like to find a way to, the Athens Motion Plan says that, you know, ideally we would have buffered bike lanes here. Obviously with repaving, we don't really get to widen the road as much, but we do want to identify opportunities to make it safer. So maybe that means we focus on one side, maybe the uphill side has a, you know, buffered bike lane, and then we've got sharrows on the downhill side, which is not ideal, but it allows us to have the safer facility on the more strenuous uphill part.
Because it's a full depth reconstruction, does that make a difference in terms of what you can do or whether you can expand?
Yeah, so I don't know about expanding. That could get into capital project territory. Stephen, what is your take on that?
Expanding, like widening?
Yes.
Well, widening in order to add a bike facility.
Yeah,
Or put a
so really with the idea of the road diet, it's trying to use the existing footprint wherever possible. Not to say that we couldn't schedule a capital project along with paving if we saw an opportunity that needed to be done for widening, but that would be outside the budget of existing paving budget to do that.
Sure, got it. Thanks.
But with the full depth reconstruction, if that were paired with the Athens Motion funds, would this be like something that could be worked out?
Sure, and that's probably when you'd want to do it too, right? When you're doing a full depth reclamation there, you'd want to, you just have to think about, it's not just the cost of widening, but it's the cost of redoing all the stormwater and the curb and gutter in certain locations, that kind of thing.
Right. All right. So And at this point, we're just going to be saying, here's a spot that we want to, that we're probably going to do some stuff on. We don't need to have the plans, like all this stuff. Right now we're just like, I have comments on Baxter Street, and then we'll move forward with that. So, I think one of the other ones I wanted to bring up,
Is full depth reconstruction, a complete rebuilding of the road? Is that as far as we go without changing the footprint of the road? Is that what that means?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
That's right. And to kind of, and if you think about full depth, what that really means is you're not just kind of overlaying something on the existing, and you're not just doing a slight mill. I mean, you are really getting down to the sub base below the asphalt and redoing everything that's part of the roadway.
Yeah, and the next one to mention was the Westchester Drive. So this will be from basically Mitchell Bridge Road to Chalifont. So I'm gonna pull up a map. This is not one that was in the Athens in Motion plan, but with the funding that's coming forward for Tallahassee Road multi-use path and the concept development moving forward with Mitchell Bridge Road multi-use path, the Westchester Drive, this is already a pretty wide road. So the opportunity that we identified here was potentially doing a bike lane going uphill with sharrows coming downhill. That would just kind of help with, getting up there and having that space that you need. It's not, based on Strava Metro, which is what I've used lately to look at bike paths around the city, which I'll go ahead and pull that up too. So this is kind of what I've been using as my metric for current bike traffic. It's not perfect, but it is a pretty good representation of where cyclists are biking if they're using Strava. So
Look at the village. Wow.
yeah, it's heavily used. So over here, I'm like, gotta get my bearings. Okay, so you can see here that Westchester does not have a high volume, but with the fact that we're repaving it and the lanes are so wide, and like you're not even really, having on-street parking or anything, I think that opens us up for some cool opportunities here. We still need to run it by traffic engineering because we do want to make sure that the for those that turn as you go downhill, we want to make sure that meets engineering standards. So all of that to say, this would still run. We may be able to do this one in-house, the design for it, but we might also go, kind of outsource it.
So Daniel, there is that T-Splost 2023 potential project to put sidewalks on Westchester Drive and throughout the community. So it looks like, maybe there's some opportunities to coordinate there or interface with that if it ends up on the Mayor Commission's final list. I don't know if that needs to be separate or if we need to keep that in mind, like that we will potentially be building sidewalks along there as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if we get into building sidewalks, or when we get into it, we'll make sure that whatever future plan is here, like we don't want to build sidewalks and then widen and have to rip them up. So that is, with repaving, we can't really do much widening, but as we get into the sidewalk projects, we'll make sure that's covered. And yeah, and for context there, the sidewalk project is, I think, for most of Westchester, there's just a lot of gaps along through there. The last thing was a Whitehead. So you can see Whitehead is a major thoroughfare for cyclists. I'm assuming it's because in order to get in and out of town from Old Jefferson, where a lot of people bike Old Jefferson Road, rather than going in on Jefferson Road and having to deal with the Prince Avenue interchange there, they're probably going down Whitehead and into Tallahassee because it's a little bit more safer, more safe. That being said, there's not really any width to really road diet along Whitehead, and so that is I believe it was 35 miles an hour road. So we're gonna do a study to see if Sharrows would be suitable here. One of the things I did just get off the phone with the GDOT safety engineer yesterday, and one of the things that we talked about was the possibility of adding in bike boxes at intersections, even if you don't have bike infrastructure. So, for instance, up at this end of Whitehead, as part of this repaving project, if we did Sharrows here, we could go ahead and do bike boxes as it goes onto Jefferson, meaning that like from the Sharrow, you still get priority in front of the cars. That just makes it for a safer interchange. So where I'm sure you've seen, the bike lanes going into bike boxes, that it doesn't have to be a bike lane for that to work. So we don't want to just throw Sharrows down all over town. I'd like to do a master plan for the Sharrows, like so we're going to use the FHWA standards, and then also recommendations by NACTO to determine which roads would be most suitable for Sharrows, and then from there we'll do a plan and we can talk with you guys about that more when that time comes. But that would allow us to get a little more connectivity in here and just bring more attention to the cyclist.
I'm just going to register a strong concern that if you have a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit on a downhill road, most people are going to be going way too fast for Sharrows to make it safe. I just don't think there's good evidence that Sharrows do anything, and they're a distraction. So I'll register that objection, realizing that they are part of our plan and part of our infrastructure, but I worry that they sometimes may make things worse than better, actually, despite good intent.
And we can also avoid Sharrows and just do signage. Ultimately, I believe this is essentially a 22-foot wide road with 11-foot lanes, and we can't do a road diet. And
Right.
ideally, we'd do delineated or buffered lanes here.
And the neighborhood would have to ask for any calming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now, if it's a cut through, they want to have calming on there to discourage cut through traffic, vehicular traffic.
Well, and then that also, I think it depends on the road type. So let me just get that for you. So Whitehead is a major collector. So not sure if you could do, I don't think it would qualify for NTMP. Oh, do collectors, are those excluded, Stephen?
That all might change with, we're updating NTMP standards anyway, but I think it's more about the, mostly it's local roads, but it also has to do with like the parcel usage around it. So right now, I don't think it would qualify, but that may change as Mayor and Commission kind of re-look at the NTMP standards.
Gotcha. And
thanks.
I forgot to mention, this is a tier 3 bike, tier 3 ped. So it's not up at the top of the list. It's one of those things where if we wanted to use the Athens in Motion funding to go towards this, it's hard. It's a little harder to justify to packaging like, and it has the proposed facility here is buffered, so it's a little harder to get that off the ground, I guess, when we have so many other facilities that are in need.
As we think about re-tiering for the next Athens in Motion iteration, is it possible to figure out a way to incorporate the Strava data as a way to see, it seems like part of the priority might be what are people doing? Where are they already going? Where are they voting with their feet and their bikes?
That would be great. I don't know if Strava specifically, because it is from a sole source of the app, it is kind of a limited view.
And who has
but
the app? It's going to reflect maybe a higher SES population and not necessarily because it's an app and it's on a mobile phone or.
right.
But
worry
usage data sounds right. But yeah, I think this specific one might not be the right one.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you can see where the Twilight people like to have Strava tracking their their route. So in some cases it's thrown off a bit by that. You can also see a lot of the mountain bike trails around town. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Strava data is just so cool, and I think that it's important to start or to use it to some extent. But I think we should remember that it probably captures a certain kind of rider, a confident.
No, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I just
Yeah.
thanks for making me think about that. That's right.
Yeah.
But that being said, we are working on some data sources that would give us accurate index of bike and pedestrian counts, that are kind of not for one specific app.
I have a question regarding Strava. So do we want to try and encourage bicyclists in town to use it? And would that be a message that we could consider putting out? Athens in Motion?
What do y'all think? I don't know. That's a really great area.
Yeah,
Could you do it without promoting a specific brand? Could you say, like, here's a list of different types of data capturing apps?
Yeah, and
If that
are
makes it
there
even more
others like
convoluted.
Map My Ride and Ride with GPS? Do they have similar data?
It gets a little messy if you have too many sources of input. I just was wondering if there was a way to
Yeah.
like get better data for us because, this is a self-selecting group who are using Strava.
Yeah.
So,
And I think they have some other data sources. I think Strava has other data sources, but I'm not positive like what they are. Primarily it's Strava users, but it could be that they're working with Map My Ride or something like that too. The one thing is like Strava has Strava Metro, which then allows you to track. It allows me to have like a dashboard, and I can actually like zoom in, and I can get counts on segments of street, and then and that'll give you this is with no selections, but it shows you the number of trips and the volumes by hour and day, and then oops, do you not feel like downloading that right now? And then it also gives you demographics a little bit. I'm thinking, yeah, I'll load some edges so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So on this segment of Prince, you got 290 activities in December of 2021, and that's with 375 trips. So, and then you get to see the volume and the days. You can change the time period, and then you can also see a breakdown. This, I've noticed kind of across the board, Strava has a higher, like every one of our roads has a higher percentage of male cyclists. I don't know that that means that there's a higher percentage on the road, or if it's just that a higher percentage of Strava users are male. So, but you do get some ages here, which is kind of cool. But that kind of also reflects the age range of people who would be using tracking apps to kind of map your ride. So, and it's pretty much mostly reported as leisure, and so you can imagine Friday, Saturday, Sunday bike rides. Those are a lot more popular. So, just something to consider. It's
And
not
I think
the
it's
best.
still good data. We just need to understand the limitations of it.
Yeah, for me, it helps me figure out, um, you know, is this part of a potential bike route, or like, you know, maybe
Sure.
when we get into doing bike boulevards, we can see the patterns that people are taking through normal town to see like, oh, well, what is the comfortable route? Um, so a lot of possibilities there. I don't want to hold it to gospel or anything, obviously, um, but it's definitely a useful tool.
Yes.
And
Okay. So
so
we've gotten a little bit in the weeds on this, which I love because I love geeking out with y'all about this kind of stuff. But yeah, Daniel, how much more did you want to talk about from pavement maintenance? Like, what are the other items that are coming up?
yeah, you know, some of the other things, there was, I think it was Old Epps Bridge Road, for instance. That's one that was identified. This is a cut through from Hawthorne to Broad Street, and there's a high rate of crashes here. So we're going to just have a separate conversation looking at what GDOT had from their road safety audit to see, are there any things we can do with striping to make it safer? Now, if this is more of a speed table type situation, then it doesn't really impact the pavement. But the main question is there anything that we can do from a striping standpoint that would make it harder for people to fly through there and use as a cut through? So obviously
Daniel,
there's a lot of different opportunities here, but yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Is that that little segment of Old Epps Bridge that goes in front of the Hilltop Grill? Is that where you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. I see a lot of homeless people just sort of hanging around in that area. I know there's like a recovery center there. I mean, are the crashes that are occurring there pedestrian crashes or are they vehicular crashes?
Some are for sure. But I know one of our pedestrian fatalities was across West Broad Street in this area. I don't have the specific details on that, but yeah, I think probably what's best is to basically do a special called session, um, and then once I've had a chance to review all of our recommendations through traffic engineering and engineering and streets, then we can basically have a special called session where we update you guys. And in the meantime, I will go ahead and send the full pavement schedule to you guys to review. And that way y'all can come to that special called session with recommendations, and then we can do some comparisons there. Does that sound like a good path forward?
Yeah. So then what you need from us is to firm up a date, right?
Yes.
Okay. I've got the calendar pulled up. Are we going to try and aim for Tuesday, or is that going to conflict with mayor and commission meeting? We're usually done before the mayor and commission meeting, unless they have a special called session right before, which could happen. But you also have Greenway stuff.
Well, I am, let's see. Actually, that's a month from now. That is not.
Do you go to their planning committee meeting for the Greenway?
If it's sometimes for the most part, yeah, but like I help them out with that. I don't need to be there. Next
Keep
week
coming, Daniel.
I'm
We need you.
currently wide open. What's that?
Keep coming. We need you there.
Uh-oh. That's why
Well,
Carly.
lately it's stalled out a little bit. So I just don't like we went last week and we ended the meeting after 30 minutes. So
Okay.
I'm just not positive how much they're doing at the moment.
Okay,
But
so
I
then
will try to go to that if I can. But
so you need something that gives you enough time to gather any additional thoughts that you have, but also that's like not right when we have our next meeting. So something around the 8th, the week of the 7th, I mean. or
Well,
the,
I think, Stephen, I haven't gotten a date set in stone with you guys, but it seemed like Monday next week worked well for y'all to review this. Are we good anytime after that to run it through AIM?
Sure. I think that's a good next step.
So really anytime at like from the February 1st onward, I'm good with that. And I don't have anything on my calendar right now for the first, so you know, if they haven't gotten the meeting out to me, then whatever meeting comes first, I get that accepted. So
okay. And how much time do you want to allocate to this? Do you think you'll need?
I want to say an hour, but I'm worried that's not enough.
Okay, so like an hour and a half?
Yeah, how does that sound for everyone?
Yeah,
I
okay.
can't do the first, unfortunately. I've got some meetings I need to attend down in Waynesboro, but by no means, like, yeah.
What about the second? So that's Wednesday, February 2nd. Some tentative nods. No.
Yeah,
That-
that'd be fine.
That could work.
As long as we're done by 6.
Oh, right. I'm sorry, Daniel.
No, you're good.
It's dinner again for your bowling? And we can
No, as long as we're done by 6, like I'll be good. And honestly, actually, I think I'm pre-bowling that week anyway. So yeah, I'll be free anytime that day.
okay, so Wednesday, February 2nd, 4 p.m. to 5:30. What do y'all think? Athens in motion.
Sure.
Good.
That
Teresa,
works.
you good?
Yep.
Carly, can you make that time?
Yes. I can.
Blaine, did you say? Okay, Blaine, you gave me a thumbs up. Okay. All right, so we'll have a special called session. See, that's how we roll. We like to have extra meetings on this commission. We were all like A+ students, probably. Tell. Extra credit. All right, 4 p.m. to 5:30. Okay. Special pavement maintenance. That's going to be an hour and a half. I'm putting it in my calendar. Thank y'all for your service.
Sorry to go over so much in time.
It's fine. It's good.
And do I invite anyone from our committees to that? Or is it just the commission?
I think because it's a special called meeting of the commission, that's just the full commission.
Okay. All right, so
Unless you know, if there are any guests that want to attend, because I mean we are talking about like infrastructure. So I'm fine if we want to have any guests if they express an interest, or if any of them are watching now.
well, I will start off with just inviting Ronnie to help me. And from there, I can add people on later, but I'll just get it out to you guys right now so we can have it on the schedule.
I think Bike Athens would really benefit from this.
I'll throw Scott on there.
Yeah.
See, Mike. There we go. You should
Okay,
be getting that.
thank you. And I know we're a little over time, but I don't think we'll have a lot of committee updates. So Daniel, you still wanted to chat about the West Broad roundabout and a multi-use path and public input, right?
Yeah, we don't need to get into it much right now, but just as a point of context for you guys, I've been working in that group as we're working with like the consultants for the concept. They've gone through a lot of the stages, and Stephen, are we at the 85%? Or is that, we're
what-
like done with concept and then bringing
On
it
which
to
one,
the public?
Dana?
Oh, sorry, West Broad Roundabout. Because it's a
I just have
GDOT
to look back
project, I guess.
Yeah, I have to look back at Ronnie's notes and see.
Okay. I think we're in the final concept. So one of the pieces of feedback I gave was that I really want to see multi-use path around the entire roundabout. That would make sure that whatever future bike connectivity comes into that can just plug into the multi-use path, and that way we don't need to redesign anything, re-pour any retaining walls for widening or anything like that. So, you know, that should be getting onto the concept. And so with that, you know, I think in March through April, you guys might, if y'all are up for it, maybe help us promote the public input, get the word out. And yeah, there's a few different ways that they're going about it. We're doing some mailers and stuff, but it's enough in advance where we can talk about it at our next meeting to go in more detail. And I'll try to have a concept for you guys.
Awesome. Anything else, Daniel?
I think that's it. I hope.
Yeah, so one item that Mark had brought up was trying to understand how exceptions get made when we're putting in bike and pedestrian facilities. And Mark, you had brought up the parking spot in front of the UGA president's house, and then also along Whole Street where there's car parking spots. And in fact, actually, I biked this road today, and they were parked at the end of the bike lane and not in an actual parking spot at all. So I know that we just kind of sent that your way this week, but I think that helps us to understand, like, you know, who gets to call these exceptions. But that's something else.
Yeah, Stephen, do you have do you have anything for that, or should we prepare some info? I'm not too clear on it.
Sorry, I'm answering some back and forth from Blaine right now, so I've missed that.
Oh, no problem. So the question is, whenever we're working with concept development and an area like the area in front of the president's house where they specifically want to keep their parking space for their parallel space, how does that get, and that I guess kind of ties into that feeling of ownership over the road in some way, even though it's owned by Athens-Clarke County. What does that process look like? How do we make that decision? I'm assuming it has everything to do with mayor and commission.
That's right. And I mean, it's been a special consideration that they've made in the past. For us, for what's, you know, the upcoming concept, it would be as Banesh or whoever is working on the design, that would just be part of the conversation that we send to them to say, hey, can we make special considerations on the concept here? And mayor and commission and would decide what, you know, they'd see what it could look like and then decide if they want to do it.
Okay. Because all of those facilities have off-street parking behind the building, so it's not as if they need that particularly. And it, to some extent, I've heard this from a commissioner that one of the reasons for that on-street parking on Prince is for the buses on game days and donors to get them to the game, and it's convenient for them. But you know, I'm not sure we should be privileging out-of-town donors over people who are using the roadway and live in the neighborhood. That's, you know, concern. I walked by there today. I don't think I've ever seen a car parked there. I don't go by there on game day, so that may be different. But on any other day, there's nobody parked there. Anyway,
Yeah, especially for 6 days a year.
Exactly, and I think it's going to be, you know, something we're going to have a conversation when the Prince Avenue plan, as you said, goes forward.
I think the only special consideration they wanted. Oh, what's that?
I was going to say, how about a game day, you know, allowance for parking, but every other day, no.
And
well, from what I understood, UGA was not asking for any parking spots to remain there. It was just for the bus stop in front of the president's house.
Okay, and that's So maybe there can be some consideration. I mean, there's a big parking lot across the street, then there's, you know, there, I think they had done other things in the past, but anyway, it is a conversation to be aware of and that we'll have to, you know, work through as work on the Prince Avenue corridor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that there's temporary infrastructure that could be put when that is needed, and then the rest of the time it could function in
Yeah,
a safe
agree.
way. And I hope that we can, you know, maybe it's just a matter of like having a commission like us to push for the design and the safety over a couple times a year when it's needed for something else. Maybe, you know, we're the missing piece there.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine for if it's 6 days a year, but to make it 365 days a year, then that's where, you know, I have an issue with it. So, but I understand, you know, we need to balance everyone's needs and input, and 6 days a year, I could certainly live with that. But anyway, something we can talk about.
I have seen some like shared, like bus lane, bike path concepts, where maybe it's like if you're having like an extra, if you have a whole lane for a bike path slash bus lane,
Yeah,
I don't know, that could be an opportunity. I'd be curious to see what the consultants come up with. I mean, I guess that's part of the Prince Avenue concept that we'll be working on.
sounds good. Thanks.
Mark, thanks for bringing that up. And speaking of Prince Avenue, we'll quickly go onto our committees and commissions, and I'm not sure if there's that many updates, but so I will turn it over to anyone from any of the corridors, whether it's Atlanta Highway and Lexington Road or Prince Avenue. Do y'all have a brief update?
I have the briefest of brief updates, which is, first of all, that the Atlanta Highway Corridor Committee is not meeting this month, or has not met this month and is not planning to. So hopefully we'll meet next month if there's anything to talk about. But I don't know if you all have noticed, there's a new urgent care clinic going up on one side of, I think on the south side of West Broad, Atlanta Highway. Anyway, there's a sidewalk being built on that side of the road, and I don't know what is wrong with people. I mean, there are just things that make my head want to blow up. But basically, they built a new sidewalk, and there was a street sign right in the path of the sidewalk. So they just poured the concrete around the street sign. Okay, I have a problem with that. I mean, who approves things like this? Okay, that's the Atlanta Highway report.
Well, this is what happens when we leave our sidewalk building too small to businesses instead of us.
Prince Avenue corridor, the staff presented to mayor and commission the work session on the 10th or 11th. And so I assume a vote is coming up soon on the project list. Diana Jackson did a great job, presented the prioritized project list to mayor and commission. So hopefully we'll be getting some decisions from the mayor and commission soon.
Okay. And on Lexington Road, there hasn't been any meetings yet this year, but per Derek Doster, there's been some behind the scenes activities going on, some surveying on the road. So things are moving along.
Thank y'all. And thank you for continuing to serve on the corridor committees. All right, Athens and Motion committees. Blaine, is there anything from UGA that you have any updates for us?
The students are back. They're back on campus in full force. They're back at the grocery stores and they're back at the restaurants. No, nothing from UGA at this time.
I almost got doored on not Baxter, on Lumpkin this morning. And it was there was even a bike lane. It was green. I was wearing my reflective gear and I see her face and I'm like, ah.
Gosh.
Everyone be careful. Policy committee met. We are going to do a presentation to the mayor and commission on our complete streets policy at a work session sometime this spring. We are looking at bike ordinances. We had Cole Scott, or he of his own volition, looked at bike ordinances across the country in college towns, and it's really neat to see what there is. So we have prioritized what we'd like to explore further. And we've gone through, there were about 44, I think, ordinances listed, and we've kind of prioritized them as a committee, and we've looked at half of them together.
I updated that with my comments and whatnot.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
T-SPLOST 2023, as I understand it, the mayor and commission are working on their version of the final list. Hoping to hear about that more soon. They will vote next Tuesday on the list itself and make the call to for the referendum in 2 weeks on the 15th. And there's no wiggle room for that, so we should learn something soon. Possibility for some projects being shuffled around a bit. I know that they were talking about maybe putting the corridor projects in a bucket, but I really don't know. So to be determined. Our next meeting is February 9th. Education and communications. Teresa, do you have any other updates with your crew?
I think I have said my piece on that topic this evening.
Thank you. T-SPLOST. Erin, were you there last night?
No, I couldn't make it to meeting.
No problem, no problem. I was like,
Burke County. My new job's got me a lot more evening meetings, unfortunately.
that's okay. I was just trying to remember, like, man, I can't believe I've already forgotten. It was just last night. Yes, the T-SPLOST 2018 met. You've heard a lot about what projects, the status of projects through Todd's update earlier. I'm trying to think what's relevant to us. So this is kind of related to pavement maintenance, but we're on the last year of funding for pavement maintenance because T-SPLOST 2018 is only covers up to 2022. So this is related to T-SPLOST 2023 that the mayor and commission will have to either pull back some money because the advisory committee did not recommend pavement maintenance on 2023, or they'll have to find another source. I'm trying to remember what else is relevant to us on there. I can't think of anything, but I'll come back to that. Downtown looks good. It's looking good. Recommend going down there, walking on the wide sidewalks, and the trees have been planted. I have a friend who blames me for the trees on Clayton Street being cut down. It gives me a hard time about it. Like, but there was no stormwater facility. There was nothing. Carly, anything from the Greenway Commission?
Unfortunately, I missed our last meeting, so actually Daniel probably has a better update than I do. So Daniel, do you have anything? I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. Not really. I think the main piece of news was from Todd. So just, and once again, just it may be tempting to go check out the new trail. Don't do it. There's a lot of moving parts there, and it's really important that the construction zones stay safe for everyone. Yeah, I think other than that, they're working on the Greenway Network plan still, but there haven't been really any updates, so still moving on that. And Carly, are y'all doing anything communications wise?
We need to sort of make a plan for 2022 to start that up. So I'm actually hoping to maybe connect with you and Teresa about our very exciting communications plans, although I guess we're outsourcing, but be good to connect, to chat, see what options ORGC has.
Yeah, I mean, if you wait long enough, you can just use ours.
Right? I was wondering about that.
Just use a couple bucks out of our. Don't do everything that we're. Yeah,
Right.
no, that I think that makes sense. Yeah, no, not really any other updates from Greenway.
All right, that's all I have. So I'll see you all again in a couple weeks on February 2nd for a special called meeting from 4 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then our next full meeting is February 22nd at 4 p.m. And we'll also know by then about what the finalist for T-SPLOST 2023 looks like. And hopefully we'll be able to build out our network some more. I hope it's good news. Forcing the voters have to say yes, but.
Question for Daniel. What's going to happen now that we've approved the budget request? What's the sequence of events?
I'm gonna make some emails / calls, and we will. I think our next thing is we need to start gathering up all the different materials that we use, marketing materials and whatnot. So I would say, do we have a scheduled meeting for our next communications meeting?
We do not.
Okay,
So that
so
might be something
I
we
think
do
setting that up.
now.
Yeah, let's set up, maybe send out an email. I'll make a note to myself. So yeah, what I'd like to do is get a time where Jared can come. I don't know if we because we do pay for his time. Maybe we get everything together in anticipation of that meeting, and then so all right, I will send out an email scheduling the next communications meeting. If you guys can send me all of the materials, like marketing materials. For instance, Lauren, I guess most of the documents are just in our Google Drive. Is that right?
We don't have any
Yeah.
marketing materials really, other than our logo and
Well, we have our presentations. We have
Yeah.
the various usages of our logos. We have letterhead for letters of support. And then I think also the handouts, the one pagers that we did for Atlanta Highway and the other T-Splosh. So all of those materials, those are all things that we can package and hand off, and we can say, here's what we've got. And then they can take that and they can see, okay, well, they've been using this font a lot. We like the way that these colors, we're going to make these adjustments, and then they'll turn it around and send it back to us. And so, yeah, like that might just be, let's have a call. I'll reach out to Jared and then get his next steps, and then I'll reach out to you and Lauren, and we can do that offline to get those details. And if
Cool.
anybody else is interested in just participating in any of these things, I will be sending out the committee meetings to the general listserv. So feel free to join if you're not on it, if you're passionate about marketing or
Please.
branding.
We would love to have your input.
Yes.
Great.
All
Well, I
right.
know that we are over time. It's good to see you all. See you in a couple of weeks. Stay safe out there. Bye.
Bye.